You know the story. Small band of warriors, impossible odds, miraculous victory. Except this one's real. August 12, 11, 21, 40 kilometers west of Tbilisi, 56,000 Georgians facing a coalition so massive, the numbers still get argued over today. Walter the Chancellor counted 600,000. Matthew of Edessa said the same. Modern historians put it between 100,000 and 250,000. Either way, the math doesn't add up. King David IV shouldn't have won. His men should have run. The Seljuk Empire should have crushed Georgia and kept it crushed. Instead, in 3 hours, David destroyed the largest Muslim army ever assembled in the Caucasus and changed history forever. How does that happen? What actually went down at Didgori? And why does Georgia still celebrate this battle every August 12th, 900 years later? Georgia in 1089 looked like a corpse. Seljuk Turks had been ripping through the Caucasus since the 1070s, turning farmland into pasture, villages into ash. King Georgi II paid tribute every year just to keep his throne. Didn't matter. Turkish raiders operated outside Sultan Malik Shah's control anyway. They took what they wanted: slaves, livestock, anything that moved. The Chronicle of David IV says it plainly. No more sowing, no more harvesting, forests reclaiming fields, wild animals replacing men. By 1089, Georgia controlled only Abkhazia in the northwest corner. Everything else belonged to the Turks or to Georgian nobles who'd stopped answering the king's calls. Georgi abdicated that year. Forced out, his 16-year-old son David took the crown. Nobody expected much. Teenager inheriting a disaster, but David had been watching. He'd been learning, and he had a plan that would take 32 years to execute. First move, centralized power. Between 1089 and 1100 Tar, David crushed rebellious feudal lords one by one. The Parit Bagvashi, enemy of the crown for decades, arrested in 1093, expelled in 1094. When the Parit's son Rati died, David abolished their entire princedom of Kudakari in 1103. No more independent power bases, no more lords playing both sides. Second move, fix the church. At the Ruisi Urbnisi Council in 1103 Dice, David reorganized the clergy top to bottom. Georgian church had been a mess. Noble families promoting their teenage sons to bishop positions. Illegal marriages, corruption everywhere. David set minimum age requirements, qualification standards, uniform practice across all Georgian churches. Then he unified the positions of Bishop of Chkondidi and Chief Secretary, putting the church directly under royal control. Smart. The church had land, influence, money. Now it answered to him. Third move, build an army that could actually fight. Traditional Georgian forces mixed mercenaries, peasants and nobles. Decades of civil war had gutted them. David needed something different, something permanent, something loyal only to the crown. He found it in the north. 1109. Grand Prince Vladimir II, Monomakh of Kievan Rus, defeated the Kipchak Confederation on the Don River. 40,000 Kipchak families under Khan Otrak, also called Atraka in Georgian sources, fled south into the Caucasus, looking for protection. David saw opportunity. He traveled personally to Ossetia in the northern Caucasus with his advisor George of Chkondidi to negotiate. The deal was simple. Georgia provides land and protection. Kipchaks provide soldiers, one fully armed warrior per family. To seal it, David married Otrak's daughter. She took the Georgian name Gorundukt. Her birth name's lost to history, but the alliance wasn't. 40,000 Kipchak families moved into Georgia in 1118. That's 40,000 soldiers, light cavalry, horse archers, men who grew up fighting on the steppes. David settled them throughout Georgia, some in Inner Kartli, others along the frontier facing the Seljuks. 5,000 went straight into the Royal Guard, the Monispa, the king's personal retinue. The rest garrisoned frontier regions. They wintered in Kartlian lowlands, summered in Caucasus foothills, and they belonged to David completely. If you value documented medieval military history like this, subscribe. It's the best way to support our work. Also comment from which city you're hearing this from. This script is researched and factual, using sources from Alexander Mikaberidze's detailed study, Miraculous Victory, Battle of Didgori, 1121, published in Armchair General on May 14th, 2008, and the comprehensive Georgian chronicles, specifically the Life of King David entries compiled by Ivane Javakishvili at Tbilisi State University Press in 1982, which provide contemporary eyewitness accounts cross-referenced with Arab chronicler Ibn al-Athir's documentation from the Muslim side. These aren't surface-level sources. Mikaberidze spent years in Georgian archives. Javakishvili translated primary manuscripts, and Ibn al-Athir wrote within living memory of survivors. Now back to the information. With his new army, David went on the offensive. 1199, He stopped paying tribute to the Seljuks entirely, just cut them off. Then he started taking territory. Between 1105 and 1120, David captured fortress after fortress: Samshvilde, Zerna, Rustavi, Kalatzori, Lora, Aragani, each one a statement. Georgia wasn't a tributary anymore. By 1118, David controlled almost all Georgian lands. Georgia became the dominant force in Transcaucasia, but one city remained out of reach: Tbilisi. Tbilisi had been under Muslim rule since 736, nearly 400 years. Arab emirs controlled it, taxed it, fortified it. The city sat at a geographic crossroads: Black Sea to Caspian Sea, north to south. Whoever held Tbilisi controlled trade routes, military corridors, regional power. David wanted it, needed it. June 1121. He put the city under siege. The Muslim elite inside started paying him tribute just to avoid assault. David accepted. For now, he had bigger problems approaching. Word spread fast: Georgian king besieging Tbilisi. Georgian armies raiding as far as the Araxes River Basin and the Caspian littoral. Georgian cavalry terrorizing Muslim merchants throughout the South Caucasus. The Muslim world noticed. Sultan Mahmud II, Ibn Muhammad of Baghdad, ruler from 1118 to 1131, heard the complaints from Muslim merchants in Tbilisi, Ganja, and Dmanisi. They wanted protection. They wanted Georgia crushed. Mahmud declared jihad. He assembled a coalition. Najm al-Din il-Ghazi Ibn Artuk of Mardin took command. Il-Ghazi had just won the Battle of Ager Sanguinis in 1119, destroying the Crusader army of Antioch. Experienced commander, proven winner. With him came Dubays II Ibn Sadaqah from Al-Hilla on the Persian Gulf, Togrul ibn Muhammad, the Sultan's brother. Lord of Aran and Nakhichevan brought his forces. Tugan Arslan the Hunchback, Lord of Arzan, Bitlis, and Divin marched from the northeast. Warriors from Damascus, Aleppo, Malatya, Myafarican, Mardin, Arzan, nomadic Arab tribes, they all answered the call. Size estimates vary wildly. Walter the Chancellor, French knight and historian present at the battle, recorded 600,000. Matthew of Edessa, Armenian chronicler, confirmed it. Sempit-Sperapet's chronicle said 400,000. Even modern Georgian historians disagree. Estimates range from 100,000 to 250,000. Numbers that high always inflate in medieval sources. But every source agrees on one thing: the Muslim coalition vastly outnumbered the Georgians, massively, and they were coming. July 1121, Il-Ghazi's army entered Georgian territory. Arab chronicler al-Fariki documented the route, from Kars through Javakheti and Trialeti, heading straight for Tbilisi, unite with the Muslim garrison there, rest, then crush David's forces. Solid plan. August 10th. The coalition army bivouacked near Didgori and Manglisi, about a day's march from Tbilisi, 40 kilometers west of the capital. They set up camp on a vast plain in the Trialeti Valley. Il-Ghazi deployed his forces in standard Seljuk fashion: light cavalry and archers in the vanguard to harass enemy lines, heavy infantry and cavalry behind in ordered formations. The numbers alone should have guaranteed victory. David knew what was coming. His intelligence network, the Mist of Rabi he'd established years before, kept him informed of every movement. He also knew he couldn't let Il-Ghazi reach Tbilisi. If that coalition united with the Muslim garrison, Georgia was finished. David had to intercept. Had to fight now. Had to win with 56,000 men against forces 3 to 4 times larger. He chose the battlefield carefully. Didgori mountain range, narrow passes, dense woods, slopes and valleys, terrain where numbers didn't matter as much as tactics, where a smaller force could control movement, where surprise could work. August 11th. David led his army through the Nikbisi Valley from the ancient capital Mitsketa. Then he did something dramatic. He ordered the valley behind his troops blockaded with fallen trees. No retreat, no escape route. His men would fight or die. Nothing else. David split his forces. Larger group under his personal command, smaller detachment under his son, Demetrius I, hidden in reserve behind nearby heights with orders to strike the enemy flank at a signal. The Georgian army consisted of 40,000 Georgians, including the Manaspa, 5,000 heavily armored mounted warriors with lances and bows who formed the elite royal guard, 15,000 Kipchaks under their original commanders, 500 Alans from the northern Caucasus, and 200 Frankish crusaders from the Holy Land. Those Franks need explanation. Crusaders arrived in Georgia through Constantinople because the territory between Antioch and Georgia belonged to the Seljuks. No direct route. Some sources say 100 Franks, others say 200. One account mentions up to 1,000. Matthew of Edessa confirmed 100. Walter the Chancellor, who was there, said 200. King Baldwin II of Jerusalem, hard pressed by Muslims in Syria and Palestine, sent them. Georgia's success in northeastern Asia Minor diverted Seljuk forces from the Holy Land. Strategic alliance, Christians helping Christians against a common enemy. David arranged his army with precision, Franks, Kipchak cavalry, and infantry deployed in the center around the king's banner. The rest split equally between two wings, initially hidden from Seljuk scouts. Heavy cavalry would smash into enemy ranks with lances. Infantry would entangle the main body in close combat, while cavalry regrouped for repeated attacks. At the first sign of collapse, David would send forward his Kipchak reserves. During battle, David would command the left wing, Demetrius the right. Every soldier knew his role. According to Walter the Chancellor, David addressed his army before battle. Warriors of Christ, if we fight with abandon, defending the faith of our Lord, we shall not only overcome the countless servants of Satan, but the devil himself. I will only advise you one thing that will add to our honor and our profit. Raising our hands to heaven, we will all swear to our Lord that, in the name of love to him, we will rather die on the battlefield than run. August 12th, 1121. Morning. The trap sprung. Arab chronicler Ibn al-Athir documented what happened next. 200 Kipchak cavalrymen rode out of David's camp toward Seljuk positions. They signaled they wanted to defect. Claiming they'd abandoned the Georgian army, seeking protection from the Muslims, Ilghazi's vanguard reported back. Enemy force much smaller than expected. Confidence increased. The Muslim commanders not only allowed the Kipchaks into camp, but gathered personally to receive them. Fatal mistake. At a signal, the Kipchaks unsheathed swords and attacked. They slaughtered every Seljuk commander in sight, officers, lieutenants, anyone attending the meeting. Arrows first, then close combat. The Muslim leadership died within minutes. Ilghazi himself took an arrow. His son-in-law wounded. Most of the command structure gone in one strike. Chaos erupted. David saw the confusion and ordered immediate attack. The 200 Frankish crusaders charged the enemy vanguard with lances. Heavy cavalry smashed into forward Seljuk lines. Infantry rushed forward. The crusaders didn't just devastate the vanguard. They entangled Seljuk archers in close combat, neutralizing their ranged advantage. Seljuk archers couldn't function in melee. Their primary weapon, gone. Georgians advanced rapidly from the western mountain slopes in full formation. Ilghazi and his son-in-law survived the initial strike, but both took severe injuries. They withdrew from the battlefield, leaving the Seljuk army leaderless, majority of commanders dead or wounded, no one coordinating defense, no adequate response to the situation. King David personally led the Georgian left wing. He ordered heavy cavalry straight into the disorganized Seljuk formations. Demetrius struck from the hidden position, charging the enemy flank, pincer movement. Seljuks found themselves attacked from three directions simultaneously: frontal assault, or a western flank, and now eastern flank from Demetrius's hidden forces. The coalition army, already reeling from lost leadership, started breaking. Terrain did the rest. Didgori mountain ranges, dense woods, slopes, narrow passes. After the initial Georgian attacks, the Muslim coalition fractured. Some Seljuk forces got stuck in narrow gorges with no room to maneuver. Others tried retreating down slopes and got caught by pursuing cavalry. The battlefield geography that David chose turned numbers into a liability. A massive army couldn't deploy properly, couldn't organize, couldn't escape. When the Kipchaks joined the attack, final Seljuk resistance collapsed. The battle lasted 3 hours. 3. By midday, the coalition army was running. Georgian and Kipchak cavalry pursued fleeing soldiers for 3 days straight, miles into Turkish territory. The chronicle records Georgian troops, putting all of them to the sword and leaving them to the carnivorous beasts and birds of the mountains and plains. Armenian historian Matthew of Edessa wrote that terrible and savage slaughter of the enemy troops ensued, and the corpses filled up the rivers and covered all valleys and cliffs, claiming less than 100 men survived from every 1,000. Numbers that high might exaggerate, but the devastation was real. Ilghazi escaped with roughly 20 warriors. Wounded in the head, barely made it out. His son-in-law Debez ibn Sadaqah fled separately. Most of the coalition leadership dead, thousands of soldiers captured. Mountains of weapons and armor abandoned, horses scattered, supply trains seized. The largest Muslim army ever assembled in the Caucasus, destroyed in 3 hours by a force 1/3 its size. Aftermath changed everything. Georgians took massive numbers of prisoners, troops used as ransom in diplomatic negotiations with Seljuk authorities. David used captured Seljuks to rebuild Georgia, labor, infrastructure. The victory at Didgori gave David the momentum he needed. February 1122. After a short siege, he captured Tbilisi. The city that had been under Muslim control for 385 years fell. David entered, removed the Muslim elite, and declared Tbilisi the capital of Georgia. First time in centuries it served that function. David moved the capital from Kutaisi to Tbilisi, strategic location, economic hub, military center. From there, Georgia expanded further. 1123 to 1124, David's armies pushed into neighboring Armenia, Shirvan, and the northern Caucasus. Georgian influence stretched from the Black Sea to the Caspian Sea. The region's balance of power shifted permanently in Georgia's favor. This began what historians call the Georgian Golden Age, a period of cultural, political, and military dominance that lasted generations. If you value documented medieval history like this, showing tactical genius in action, subscribe. Also comment from which city you're hearing this from. This is researched and factual using Alexander Mikaberidze's primary source analysis, published in War History Encyclopedia, updated December 14th, 2024, Takorao, which compiles Ibn al-Athir's contemporary Arab accounts, Georgian chronicles edited by Ivane Javakishvili, Babas Noanas, and Walter the Chancellor's Bella Antiochina, written as a first-hand witness. These sources provide cross-cultural verification from Georgian, Arab, and Frankish perspectives. When all three agree, despite being enemies, you know it's accurate. And now back to the information. Numbers matter here. Let's break down what actually happened with precision. David's army, 56,000 total, 40,000 Georgians, including 5,000 elite Manaspa heavy cavalry, 15,000 Kipchaks, 500 Alans, 200 Franks, against a coalition that modern historians estimate between 100,000 and 250,000, though contemporary sources claimed much higher. Even taking the conservative estimate, David faced 2-to-1 odds minimum, likely 3-to-1 or worse. Terrain advantage was crucial. Didgori sits in the Trialeti mountain range. Narrow valley approaches, wooded slopes, limited flat ground for large formations. Muslim coalition couldn't deploy effectively. Their vanguard got drawn into the narrow valley where David wanted them. When the fake defection killed Seljuk commanders, panic spread through densely packed formations with nowhere to maneuver. Georgian forces, familiar with local geography, controlled movement. They knew which passes led where, which slopes were climbable, were terrain bottlenecked. Tactical execution was flawless. The fake defection eliminated enemy leadership before main combat began. Frankish heavy cavalry neutralized Seljuk archers by forcing close combat. Georgian heavy cavalry and infantry attacked a leadership void, no one giving orders, no coordinated response. Demetrius's flanking charge from hidden positions completed encirclement. Kipchak light cavalry pursuit prevented regrouping. Every element synchronized perfectly. Psychological impact can't be overstated. Ilghazi had just destroyed the Crusader army at Ager Sanguinis in 1119. He brought that reputation to Didgori. When he got wounded and fled, Seljuk morale shattered. Troops saw their famous commander retreat, saw their officers dead, saw Georgians attacking from multiple directions in terrain that prevented organized defense. Flight became survival instinct. But what about the larger strategic picture? Why did this battle matter so much? Why do Georgians still celebrate Didgoroba every August 12th? Context: Georgia had been under Seljuk domination since the 1080s. 4 decades of tribute payments, raids, occupation. The country was dying. When David took the throne in 1089, Georgia controlled only Abkhazia, a tiny fragment of historical territory. Everything else belonged to Turks or rebellious nobles. 32 years later, David controlled the entire Caucasus from sea to sea. That transformation started with military reform in 1118 and culminated at Didgori in 1121. Didgori proved David's system worked. Kipchak integration into Georgian forces, combined arms tactics, intelligence networks, centralized command under royal authority. Terrain selection, strategic patience. David spent 3 decades building toward this moment, and it paid off spectacularly. The battle also demonstrated Christian military capability against Muslim expansion during the Crusade era. While European crusaders struggled in the Levant, Georgia achieved decisive victory in the Caucasus. Baldwin II recognized this. His support through Frankish troops created a second front against Seljuk forces. Didgori diverted Muslim attention and resources away from the Holy Land, strategic alliance working as intended. For the Seljuk Empire, Didgori was catastrophic. Not just the military losses, though those were massive. The defeat broke Seljuk dominance in the Caucasus permanently. After Didgori, Seljuks couldn't project power northward effectively. Georgia became the regional superpower instead. This power vacuum lasted until Mongol invasions in the 13th century. Economic implications were huge. David's control of Tbilisi meant control of major trade routes, Silk Road connections, Black Sea to Caspian commerce. Agricultural production resumed in formerly devastated regions. Georgian chronicles note the return of farming, the replanting of fields, the rebuilding of towns. Tax revenue increased. David used that money to fund cultural projects, founding Galati Monastery, establishing academies at Gelati, Ikalto, and Gremi. Education flourished. Art flourished. Architecture flourished. The Golden Age wasn't just military success, it was comprehensive civilizational revival. Religious tolerance under David set important precedents. After capturing Tbilisi, David didn't massacre the Muslim population. Arab historian al-Aini, writing between 1360 and 1451, Ayn noted that David Julfram respected the feelings of the Muslims. In his realm, David abolished taxes on Muslims and Jews. He demanded tolerance from Christians. A multi-ethnic Caucasus, multi-religious kingdom with Georgian political control but cultural diversity. This tolerance became hallmark of Georgian governance through the Golden Age, but let's get back to the hard facts of battle mechanics. How exactly did 56,000 men defeat forces several times larger in just 3 hours? Leadership decapitation was key. That fake defection killed or wounded nearly all Seljuk senior commanders at once. Modern military doctrine calls this leadership targeting. In medieval context, it was devastating because medieval armies operated on visual command. Officers needed to see their commanders to know what to do. With commanders dead and no radio communication, no signal flags, no way to coordinate by, units operated independently. Independent units against coordinated enemy forces get destroyed. Close combat negation of archery. Seljuk armies relied heavily on horse archers and infantry archers. Harass enemy formations, weaken them, then charge with heavy cavalry. Standard step warfare. Georgian Crusader knights charging straight into Seljuk vanguard forced immediate melee. Archers, with swords facing knights with lances and armor. Not a fair fight. Archers needed distance. Georgians denied them that distance. Pincer movement execution. David commanded left wing. Demetrius commanded right wing, hidden in reserve. When David engaged frontally, Seljuks focused forward. Then Demetrius struck the flank from hidden position. Classic hammer and anvil. Enemy caught between two forces, can't defend both directions simultaneously. Formations break. Discipline collapses. Retreat becomes rout. Pursuit prevented recovery. Georgian and Kipchak cavalry chased fleeing Seljuks for 3 days, 72 hours of constant hunting. This wasn't mercy. This was ensuring the enemy couldn't regroup, couldn't return, couldn't threaten Georgia again. Medieval armies that escaped could reform and counterattack. David made sure that couldn't happen. The pursuit turned military victory into strategic annihilation. Georgian chronicles described Didgori as Zlivai Sakverveli, miraculous victory. Contemporary Georgian chronicler wrote, "What tongue can relate the wonders which our sustaining Christ gave us on that day? And what are the narrations of Homer and Aristotle to me about the Trojan War and the bravery of Achilles, or Josephus's writings about the valor of the Maccabees, or Alexander and Titus at Jerusalem?" They saw divine intervention. Modern analysis sees superior tactics, better intelligence, home field advantage, chasse, and brilliant generalship. Both can be true. David's personal role matters. He didn't command from the rear. Chronicles and Arab sources confirm he personally led the left-wing charge, fought at the front, inspired his troops through direct action. Medieval kings who fought alongside their soldiers got different loyalty than kings who stayed safe. David earned that loyalty. His men followed him into impossible odds because they'd seen him risk himself repeatedly over 3 decades. The Manaspa, David's 5,000 elite heavy cavalry, formed the core striking force. These weren't levied peasants or temporary mercenaries. They were professional soldiers on crown payrolls, equipped by the royal treasury, trained constantly, loyal only to David. They'd been together since the military reforms in 1118. 3 years of training and small-scale operations before Didgori. When they charged, they hit as one unit, disciplined, coordinated, devastating. Kipchak integration proved its worth. Those 40,000 families David resettled in 1118 provided 15,000 soldiers at Didgori. They fought for their adopted homeland. Their Khan, Otrok's daughter, was David's queen. Their children were being raised Georgian. They had land, safety, purpose. They fought like Georgians because they were Georgians now. That integration took vision. David spent years building those relationships. Didgori validated that investment. Alan and Frankish contributions shouldn't be minimized either. 500 Alans from the northern Caucasus, experienced mountain fighters who knew the terrain. 200 Franks, European knights with heavy armor and cavalry shock tactics that Seljuks hadn't faced in the Caucasus before. Small numbers, but high impact. Crusader charge into Seljuk vanguard worked because Seljuks expected Georgian tactics, not European ones. Tactical surprise from unexpected force composition. After Didgori, David's reputation transformed. He'd been David IV. Now he became David the Builder, David Agmashenabeli in Georgian. Builder because he rebuilt Georgia from ruins, restored territory, rebuilt cities, reconstructed institutions, revived culture. But that nickname started with Didgori. Victory gave him resources, legitimacy, and momentum to build. Without Didgori, David's reign looks different, probably still successful internally, but never the regional dominance that defined the Golden Age. Georgian Orthodox Church canonized David as a saint. That's not automatic for kings. You need demonstrated faith, moral character, and service to Christianity. David checked all boxes. Founded monasteries, reformed corrupt clergy, promoted education, showed tolerance to other faiths while strengthening Georgian Christianity, fought for Christian sovereignty against Muslim expansion. Personal piety combined with political success, St. King David the Builder, 900 years later, still venerated. Let's look at what happened to key players after Didgori. Ilghazi survived with head wound and approximately 20 warriors. He fled back to Mardin. His emirate in southeastern Anatolia died in 1122, just 1 year after Didgori. Some sources suggest the head wound contributed to his death. Others say he died in battle elsewhere. Either way, his reputation never recovered. The great commander who destroyed crusaders at Ager Sanguinis fled from Georgians at Didgori. That's how he's remembered. Dubays ibn Sadaqah, the Mazyadid ruler from Al-Hilla, also escaped but separately from Ilghazi. His participation in the failed campaign weakened his position back home. Seljuk Sultan Mahmud II, who declared that jihad, lost credibility. He'd promised to crush Georgia. Instead, his coalition got crushed. Mahmud ruled until 1131, but never again attempted major campaign against Georgia. David exploited victory immediately. February 1122, Tbilisi falls. City that had been Muslim for nearly 4 centuries became Georgian capital. David entered personally, settled administration, removed hostile elements, welcomed those who accepted Georgian rule. Then he kept expanding. 1123. Tbilisi falls, last Seljuk stronghold in southern Georgia. 1124. David conquered Armenian city of Ani from Muslim emirs. 1124. He took portions of Shirvan and the Caspian port of Derbent. Kingdom stretched across the Caucasus. Regional hegemon. Armenian citizens of Ani specifically asked David to liberate them from Turkish rule. They saw Georgian victory at Didgori and wanted that success in their city. After a brief siege, Ani fell. David declared king of Armenians in all Georgia, multi-ethnic kingdom under Georgian rule. This set precedent for Georgian influence over Armenian territories that lasted generations. David died January 24th, 1125, 4 years after Didgori, 40 years old, 36 years on the throne. He requested burial at Galati Monastery under the main entrance, so everyone entering would walk over his grave. Ultimate humility from a king who transformed his kingdom from tributary state to regional empire. His tomb remains there today, pilgrimage site. 900 years of Georgians paying respects. His son Demetrius I succeeded him. Demetrius the Great, he's called. Continued expansion, continued cultural development, continued policies David established. Georgian Golden Age peaked under Demetrius's daughter, Queen Tamar, who ruled from 1184 to 1213. Tamar became the most powerful Georgian monarch ever. She expanded the kingdom further, promoted arts, defeated multiple invasions, became legendary figure in Georgian history, all built on foundation David created. But that foundation starts at Didgori. Everything traces back to August 12, 1121. That 3-hour battle where 56,000 Georgians destroyed a coalition 3 to 4 times larger, where tactical genius and strategic preparation defeated overwhelming numbers, where David's 32-year plan paid off in the most spectacular military victory in Georgian history. Modern military academies study Didgori, terrain advantage, force multiplication through deception, leadership targeting, combined arms tactics, pursuit and exploitation of victory. Every element executed perfectly. Textbook example of smaller force defeating larger through superior tactics and battlefield awareness. Georgians today commemorate Didgoroba annually on August 12th, national celebration. Monument at Didgori Field displays dozens of swords stuck in the ground, each representing fallen warriors. The monument's location is precise, exactly where battle occurred, 40 kilometers west of Tbilisi in the Trialeti mountain range. You can visit it. You can see the narrow valley where Seljuks got trapped. You can see the heights where Demetrius hid his reserve forces. Geography explains the victory as much as tactics do. The Battle of Didgori entered Georgian national consciousness as a defining moment. A miraculous victory. But miracle implies luck or divine intervention. Didgori was neither. It was product of 3 decades of preparation, military reform starting in 1118, Kipchak integration, church reform in 1103, centralized royal authority crushing rebellious nobles, intelligence network establishment, strategic fortress capture between 1105 and 1120, every piece in place before the battle. When you prepare that thoroughly, victory isn't miraculous, it's inevitable. What separated David from other medieval kings? Vision and patience. He could have attacked Seljuks immediately after taking throne in 1089. Would have lost. Instead, he spent 11 years attacking isolated enemy troops, reviving devastated regions, consolidating power. He stopped paying tribute in 1099, but didn't force major confrontation until he was ready. He spent nearly 2 decades taking strategic fortresses before moving on to Tbilisi, and he waited until 1121, after full military reform and Kipchak integration, before accepting decisive battle. That patience is rare. Medieval politics pressured kings to act quickly, show strength immediately. David resisted that pressure. He built methodically. When Sultan Mahmud declared jihad in 1121, David was ready, army trained, tactics proven. Terrain chosen, intelligence gathered, allies positioned. 32 years of preparation met 3 hours of execution. That's the story of Didgori. Numbers tell the story best. 56,000 Georgians, 40,000 Georgians, 15,000 Kipchaks, 500 Alans, 200 Franks. Against coalition of 100,000 to 250,000. Contemporary sources said 600,000, but that's inflated. Conservative estimate puts David facing 2 to 1 odds. Probable estimate 3 to 1 or worse. The battle lasted 3 hours. Georgian cavalry pursued fleeing enemy for 3 days. Ilghazi escaped with 20 men from an army of tens of thousands. Seljuk losses catastrophic. Georgian losses minimal by comparison. Chronicles don't provide exact numbers, but describe overwhelming victory with light casualties. 40 kilometers, distance from Tbilisi to Didgori battlefield. Day's march, close enough that Ilghazi almost made it to unite with Tbilisi garrison. Far enough that David intercepted first. Narrow valley, wooded slopes, limited flat ground, terrain that negated numerical advantage. Geographic detail decided outcome. August 11th, David blocked Nichbisi Valley behind his troops. August 12th morning, fake defection killed Seljuk leadership. August 12th, midday, battle ended. August 12th through August 15th, pursuit and destruction. 4 days total from battle, start to enemy annihilation. Military operations moving that fast in medieval period. Impressive. 32 years, 1089 to 1121. David's preparation time. Teenage king inheriting disaster to mature monarch, destroying largest Muslim coalition in Caucasus history. That arc defines David's legacy. 385 years, length of Muslim control over Tbilisi before David captured it in February 1122. February to November, 9 months to consolidate control, establish administration, move capital from Kutaisi. Speed of transition shows David planned everything in advance. The Georgian chronicles call it miraculous. Arab historian Al-Aini respected David's rule. Walter the Chancellor witnessed it firsthand and documented for European audiences. Matthew of Edessa confirmed it from Armenian perspective. Ibn al-Athir recorded it from Muslim viewpoint. When Georgian, Arabs, Armenian, and Frankish sources all agree despite being enemies, you know the story's real. That convergence of evidence makes Didgori one of best documented medieval battles. Final note, why does this matter 900 years later? Because David's Georgia showed what coordinated preparation, tactical excellence, and strategic patience accomplish against overwhelming odds. Because 56,000 disciplined troops executing perfect plan defeated forces 3 times larger through superior tactics, not luck. Because one battle changed regional power balance for centuries. Because David transformed Georgia from dying tributary state to dominant regional empire in 1 generation. Because Didgori proves numbers don't determine outcomes, preparation, leadership, and execution do. In 1121, King David IV faced choice. Accept subordination to Seljuk Empire or fight for independence against impossible odds. He chose fight, but he didn't just fight. He prepared for 32 years, built military system from scratch, integrated foreign allies, centralized authority, reformed institutions, and only then accepted battle on terms he chose. That's not gambling on miracle. That's engineering victory through competence. August 12, 1121, Didgori, 3 hours. Georgian Golden Age begins, not from miracle, from preparation meeting opportunity. That's how 40,000 Georgians destroyed 150,000 Seljuk coalition. They were ready. The enemy wasn't. Here's what nobody talks about. After 3 days of pursuit, Georgian and Kipchak cavalry stopped hunting. Why? They'd ridden deep into Turkish territory. Supply lines stretched, risk of ambush increased, but also they'd accomplished the mission, enemy destroyed, threat eliminated, strategic objective achieved. Knowing when to stop pursuing matters as much as knowing when to start, David understood that. He took the victory. Consolidated gains, moved on Tbilisi while Seljuks were still reeling. That's the lesson of Didgori. Not miraculous intervention, not lucky breaks, preparation, execution, and knowing when you've won. David prepared for 32 years, executed in 3 hours, won completely. Then moved immediately to next objective. No hesitation. No doubt, just methodical success. The monument at Didgori displays swords stuck in ground. Each sword represents warrior who died there, Georgian and Seljuk both. Respect for fallen enemies. David showed that too. After capturing Tbilisi, he didn't massacre Muslim population. He abolished their taxes, demanded Christian tolerance, respected the feelings of Muslims. According to Al-Aini, winning doesn't require cruelty. David proved that. Win completely. Rule justly. That's how you build Golden Age. 900 years later, Georgians still celebrate Didgoroba, still tell the story, still remember the day 16-year-old boy who inherited disaster in 1089 became 40-year-old king who destroyed empires in 1121. Still honor the Kipchaks who adopted Georgia as homeland, still thank the Alans who fought alongside, still remember the Franks who charged with lances, still teach their children how David the Builder built Georgia through preparation, patience, and perfect execution when it mattered most. That's Didgori. That's how 40,000 Georgians destroyed 150,000 Seljuk coalition. That's August 12, 1121. That's the day Georgia stopped being tributary and became empire. That's the beginning of the Golden Age. 3 hours. 9 centuries of impact. Real history. Documented from multiple sources. Proven through geography. Verified by enemies. Celebrated by descendants. Studied by military historians. Remembered forever. Under the main entrance of Galati Monastery, King David the Builder requested burial. Everyone entering walks over his grave. Royal humility. But maybe something more. Every Georgian walking over that grave remembers what David accomplished, remembers Didgori, remembers that preparation and patience defeat impossible odds. That message walks through Galati with every visitor. That's legacy. That's how you're remembered 900 years later. Not through monuments to glory, but through humility that teaches every generation after. The swords at Didgori battlefield stand silent. The grave at Galati Monastery gets walked over daily. The chronicles preserve every detail. The story spreads through 9 centuries. And every August 12th, Georgia remembers the day David the Builder proved that competence conquers numbers. That's Didgori. That's history.